Hi, welcome to this week's edition of the Kaimin Sportscast. We're going to be talking March Madness this week, and unfortunately the Montana Grizzlies aren't going to be participating. They lost just by the skin of their teeth Saturday to Eastern Washington. You guys were there. What did you think of the game?
I really thought it was a microcosm of their whole season. You know, we'd seen it so many times, even earlier in the season, the non-conference matchups. They get up to these leads with about 5 to 6 minutes left, and you're like, all right, look at the Grizz here, they're doing well. And then for whatever reason, it's like the same kind of thing that takes on, like what they take on when they first start a game. You see this little bit of nervousness, this hesitance, this kind of feeling like, oh shit, we might lose still. And it's hard to see that when they're up 11. They hold Tyler Harvey for 35 minutes, and in the last 5 minutes he kills them. Puts them on Sports Center with taking 4 of them to the basket. That was tough to watch. It was hard to watch.
You're right. They were in that situation so many times, and I thought they had figured it out. The previous 2 games, the overtime against Weber State, which was just a phenomenal basketball game, and then taking it down to the last seconds against NAU, which we'll get to in a minute. I thought, they kind of have it figured out, and maybe this team learned how to close out games, and I guess they didn't.
Well, that's the thing too. They probably will never admit it, but playing overtime in such high intensity the last 2, it takes a lot out of you going back to back, 3 games in 3 nights.
Yeah, and you look at that Weber game, and even that game, they didn't close out very well. That last possession, they kind of, I hate to say it, but they kind of got lucky that Gregory ended up.
Yeah, what was that?
They struggled bad at the end of that one.
The end of NAU was even crazier though. You guys, were you there?
Yeah.
What did you see?
I was there. I was working for Sports Info, so I was right on the scores table, and so it happened right in front of me. And yeah, after the game, their coach, Jack Murphy, had been complaining all game about calls, and kind of rightfully so. I think the Grizz were up. There was 8 fouls on NAU and only 2 on the Grizz at one point, but at the end he came through and he yelled at Travis that he stole the game from him, and then Travis took exception to that and tried to talk to him a little bit, and then everybody just went nuts.
That's crazy. Featured on Deadspin and ESPN. Our favorite part I know was seeing Jermaine Edmonds
with the 10 for 10 slide. I've never seen such quickness out of him. See, I'm excited for next year just because of that athleticism.
That was unbelievable. That screenshot of him just flat out diving towards the bench is the funniest thing I think.
Well, that's the thing too. Yeah, I was sitting behind the NAU bench, and there was a student that made it pretty close to the half court, ran at the sideline, and then out of the corner of my eye, I see this blue shirt just diving, sliding, like he was sliding in the home, and it was, hey, what are you doing, man?
That's hysterical. Well, the team the Grizz lost to in the championship, Eastern Washington, are going to be taking on Georgetown, who perennial tournament choker Georgetown in the first round of the NCAA tournament. I'm picking Eastern. You guys?
I know you are, and it makes sense. They're getting the game close to home. They're in Portland. They're traveling, couple 100 miles, if that. They're playing against perennial choker in Georgetown, but at the same time, this season we've seen Eastern lose to teams they shouldn't have, and they're weird. They play up or down to their competition. So I don't think you're very off base taking them, but it's hard to pick the Eagles other than they have Tyler Harvey.
They have Tyler Harvey, the nation's leading scorer. And to me, it's less about Eastern, who I think is a good team. With Tyler Harvey, that Bogdan guy is really good. He can score the hell out of the ball. Yeah, he can score the hell out of the ball. And to me, it's more about Georgetown. They lost to Florida Gulf Coast 2 years ago as a 2 seed. They're just an unbelievably bad tournament team, and I don't know if... obviously the players are different, the coach is the same. I don't know what feeds into that, if it's a mentality that they have.
Otto Porter, he hasn't done anything for the Wizards, and he was on that team that lost on the 2 seed.
Yeah, but it's not like that's the first Georgetown team to ever choke in the tournament.
No, it's not like AI's coming through anytime soon. So.
Yeah. And I like what you said, how Eastern kind of plays for their competition. Didn't they get Indiana earlier in the year? Mm-hmm. And so, it's something, they've been on that big stage, and I'm excited to see what Tyler Harvey's going to do with all his newfound attention with after the Big Sky Conference tournament.
Yeah, and obviously Eastern's offense is good enough. They're good enough to compete with pretty much anyone in the country, but I just don't think their defense is good enough to hold on and win a big-time game like this for them.
All right, well, so that's one of my upset picks. Who do you guys have? We've all filled out our brackets already. What upsets do you guys have?
I'm kind of feeling Harvard again this year over North Carolina. Okay. It's something that I've kind of flip-flopped on.
It is bold, man. I feel like Carolina's come down strong, here in this last few. At least the ACC tournament.
I think the losing to Notre Dame in the ACC championship game might take a little bit of the wind out of their sails, and Harvard they've got that sneaky first round win in the past, so I'm thinking Harvard might come with the upset again.
Jesse?
I haven't been super upset heavy on this. Like, this has been a funny year where we've seen things kind of go to chalk with, Kentucky just going all the way through. So, I mean, as far as, like, someone I see at least, going to the Sweet 16 that might not necessarily be there before is Wichita State. And that's just because of what they did last season. I think they're getting slept on a little bit being put as a 7 seed. I mean, they're taking Indiana, who has not played that great this season. Mm-hmm. And then after that, they have a second-round matchup potentially against Kansas or New Mexico State. And that's another interesting 2-15 matchup because Kansas has lost some bad games this season, too. So, I mean, I can see Wichita State slipping to the Sweet 16.
Absolutely, I can see that as well. I mean, I know Wichita State fans have been calling for that Kansas game for years, and Kansas has no reason to play that game in the regular season. If they win, they're big bad Kansas. They won. If they lose, then they got knocked off by the small upstart school from across the street. So I think that's I'm hoping for that game. I think that's gonna be one of the marquee games of the tournament.
Mm-hmm. I really look at for an upset. I go Davidson down in the South region. They played here in Missoula earlier in the season, and their offense is spectacular. I think they scored. I think it was 110-99. They beat the Grizz in that game. Kalinowski, I think his name is. He's the A10 Player of the Year. He's outstanding, and I think they can go.
Got a nice matchup too if they win, because I mean, Gonzaga's gonna face North Dakota State, and Gonzaga, another perennial team that is having a hard time making the Sweet 16. Mm-hmm. So say they lose that, they'll face North Dakota State. And if not them, Gonzaga. So Davidson has a hell of a shot to make it to the Sweet 16.
Absolutely, and I think they have a shot to make it at Sweet 16. I think this year is the year Gonzaga doesn't choke for some reason. I think Kevin Pango's senior leadership, he can play. He is, I think, probably one of the one guys that would start on any team in college basketball. He's got great court awareness. He's great with the basketball.
And then Wilcher. I mean, seeing Wilcher come out of Kentucky, come over to Gonzaga and be like, hey, this is the guy who might have just sat on Kentucky's bench this season.
Absolutely.
Made the right choice.
I think Gonzaga, this is the year that maybe, they're a 2 seed. They don't have the pressure of the 1 seed, which has been something that's killed them in the past.
Well, at least 2. I mean, they're playing in Seattle, so, that fan base is going to travel for that game. So at least for the first 2 games, yeah, they're going to have
no doubt.
At least the fans on their side.
So who do y'all have winning?
Kentucky. I mean, I hate taking them, but it's hard not to. They've shown that they can very well almost lose to poor competition. I mean, they've gone down big points, with a few minutes remaining, but they've come back. And, you look at their side of the bracket, and they're primarily looking at Maryland, Notre Dame, and Kansas. And these are all 3 teams that I think Kentucky beats by almost 10 points. So their path to the Final Four is not that difficult, and when they get there, they've shown they can beat top-level competition. So
hard to pick against the Wildcats. Jackson?
Yeah, I'm going with Villanova, which is kind of an outside pick. Nobody really has them, but I look at Villanova and see the second-best team in the country. I mean, obviously Kentucky's number 1, but Villanova 32-2. They've absolutely steamrolled the Big East Conference this year, which is an underrated conference. They have 6 teams. And yeah, Nova, 6 players average 9 points. They're a good all-around team. I think Nova's can do it.
Yeah, I'm going Duke Blue Devils. And in the past couple tournaments, guard play is big on championship teams. And I think Tyus Jones and Quinn Cook can handle the ball enough for Duke, and Jaleel Okafor down low is just enough of a force to get them all the way.
I'm going with Kentucky as well. I mean, just the size for me is unbelievable. I think they're taller than every NBA team except for the Bucks.
Wow, I had not seen that.
Yeah, that's what I read that yesterday. It's an unbelievable number, and I think the leadership, the Harrison twins are more mature. I don't think they're that good. I don't think either of them is going to be like an NBA star, but they're better taking care of the ball, and they're better in those big pressure moments. And then Willie Cauley-Stein is just, to me, one of the best players in college basketball.
He chose well staying. I mean, he's done a lot for his draft stock, and he's got to play on some perennially great teams. What a career!
Yeah, he went from I think he went from a late first round pick to definitely a lottery pick this year. So he definitely helped himself out.
Yeah, and the only thing I kind of have my thought process against Kentucky is that whole being undefeated. That's a lot of pressure, and that's the whole thing about March is all it takes is that one-off game, that one night, and they're done.
Absolutely. Favorite mascot in the tournament?
Ooh, I gotta go with UAB. The fact that they have a dragon as their mascot, and his name is Blaze.
That's a baller dragon.
Seriously. When you can just be we are Montana. Their whole thing is just Blaze. That fact that they don't have a football team anymore is pretty sad. So you got to rely on that dragon for some basketball success.
Absolutely. Jackson?
I'm going with the Albany Great Danes coming out of their conference championship game, it was the Great Danes versus the Sea Wolves, which is a matchup.
As good as it gets.
Yeah,
Stony Brook's a good school
that's
too,
top.
but Great Danes, man.
Yeah, I was actually looking at this last night, and I'm gonna go Peter the Anteater from UC Irvine. I thought that was a good one. So yeah, UC
The
Irvine.
Anteaters have that. What is he? 7'5", 7'6"?
Yeah,
Is that? I forget his name.
Tallest
but-
player in the nation.
Yeah.
I can't
He
pronounce
is
it.
an actual literal giant.
Like
Yeah.
he can stretch out his arm probably a foot over the basket.
Oh, he
Yeah.
doesn't jump when he dunks. He just kind of reaches over you and throws
Yeah,
it.
gross. And I'm going
like
with
anteater motion.
the Wofford Terriers. That's a god.
These domesticated dog names is mascots.
Yeah, Great Danes and Terriers. We've got like kind of the whole dog size spectrum going on.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for this week's edition of Kaimin Sports Talk. Thanks for joining us. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kaimin Sports and give us a like on Facebook. We'll see you again next week.